in this walk?
I think for me, it's been maybe going on 3 years, I think.
Okay. All right. Dr. Yurit? In
Maybe
this walk.
the same, if not a little bit longer.
Okay. All right. Dr. Kawika?
Not the same.
Wow. Okay. Praise the mighty. Yeah. If there was anyone else who wants to come in, not at this time. All right. Well, let's try to get through chapter number 4 tonight. Some really good stuff in here that the Most High wants to bring out to us. We'll see where we're guided and directed. I'm not going to go into Hebrew tonight. I'm going to do probably just because it's such a long chapter. And when we stopped in verse number 4, and we're going to begin in verse number 5. I've been finding that every time I go through the cycles of Torah, I'm able to find out more information, right? And have my eyes open a little bit more to what is being said to us, okay? So it says, look, I have taught you laws, which are kukim and mishpatim, right, which are rulings, just as Yahweh my Elohim ordered me, so that you can behave accordingly in the land where you are going in order to possess it. I understand something. The purpose of the Torah for the children of Israel at this point in time is for them to get the kukim and the mishpatim. That's what they're supposed to get. That's what he told them that the Most High wanted to teach them, because the goal is to bring them into the land. Okay. You're always going to hear this phrase about, and I want you to focus on that tonight. Okay. I'm going to bring you into the land that you're going in order to take possession. I want you to learn how to behave. Okay. You have to behave a certain way when you get to this in particular land. Okay. Meaning you have to live in a certain manner, right? Verse 6, therefore observe them, meaning to do them, right? And follow them, or guard them and follow them. For then all the peoples will see you as having wisdom and understanding. And when they hear of all these kukim, okay, they will say, this is a great nation. This great nation is surely a wise and understanding people. I will pop over to the Hebrew so we can make sure that I'm saying the right stuff. Verse number 6 and 7 says something, and I want to share something with you about it that I just discovered. Verse number 6 and 7. Okay. So verse number 6 and 7 says, and reading from right to left, yeah, he says that you ushamartim. Yeah, you guys, second person plural, verse number 6 at the top to the left. And then it says, why I seek them, meaning to do them, right? For it is your, the kakmathkim, which is your wisdom, and your uvi nathkim, which is your understanding, in the eyes, meaning in the sight of, in the eyes of the people who will hear about all the kukim. Okay, so the individuals, they're going to hear about the kukim. Okay, we saw it in English as laws. Okay, well, what they really are is the decrees, and we've gone over this, that we understand that the decrees of Yah have to do with this letter, ket, which is the wall of, and then the kof, which is to gather. Okay, so that which is separate through the wall is being gathered together. So what Yah is saying is, prior to me letting you know how these laws and decrees were, you guys were living like everybody else. So what I'm doing is I'm opening access to you to learn my ways. And so he's saying that the people around them are going to hear about not the laws, they're going to hear about the kukim. Okay. And so what's in the kukim is the appointed times, like, the Moedims, on Pesach. They're going to hear about the Day of Atonement. They're going to hear about, the Shemitah. They're going to hear about Yuval. They're going to hear about all these different things that are found within the statutes of the Most High that Christians are saying they're done away with, right? And the purpose of this is for them to say, these are a wise and understanding people, okay, based on how they're living their lives. So it's not that they're just going to hear about them. He told us to guard them, okay? This is the purpose of guarding them, right? And to do them, right, in the eyes, because this is your wisdom and this is your understanding. We talked about understanding on Shabbat. It's going to teach you how to build. It's going to teach you how to make a distinction and separation between those things that are outside of the wall, right? So we're on the outside, and Yah said, I'm giving you access to the inside. That's where I'm going to share these statutes with you, okay? Because that's what the nations are going to focus on, the statutes. That's why we have to guard them and we have to do them, because if we don't do that, then they won't know what's happening. Key is, he says, while you're when you're going into your land. Okay, right? So this is what they're going to say. They say, they will say, this is a nation, this great nation is surely a wise and understanding people. There's only one instance where I see one individual nation saying this, and that is Queen of Sheba. When she came and she talked to Shlomo, she said this, but he says that all the nations, all the peoples are going to hear and say this. So the question I have for us tonight is, has all peoples said this statement? Have they said verse number 6?
No.
No. So really, everyone, verse number 6 is prophetic. Is letting you know what Yah's intention is. It's prophetic. Because when they went in, they did not get rid of all of the people. Remember, he said they're going to be thorns in your sides, they're going to be pricks in your eyes. They joined up with the other nations. They wanted to be like them. They didn't ever have all the peoples on the face of the earth to see this and say, this is a wise and understanding people, a nation. They've never said these things. Okay, so this is what Yah is letting us know, that they're going to hear of all these kukim, and they're going to say, this great nation is surely a wise and understanding people. We found out on Shabbat that the Most High has not given his people understanding yet. You understand? We don't have it yet. He hasn't opened our eyes to everything yet. Okay, so we're waiting. We're in a process of waiting. Verse number 7. For what great nation is there that Elohim has as close to them as Yahweh our Elohim is? This statement right here is not what the nations are saying. This is what Moshe is saying now. This is what Moshe is saying. These are his words now. He's saying, what great nation is there that has Elohim as close to them as Yahweh our Elohim is? Whenever we call on him. See, when we, who Israel, will call on him. And the answer to that is, there is none. That's the second question. What great nation is there, which is a Goi Gadol, right? That there has laws and rulings, which is the Kokim and the Mishpatim, just as this entire Torah, which I'm setting before you today. You and I know the answer to that. Who is it? Nobody. Yah has not revealed his Torah to any other people. He has not revealed his laws, his statutes, and commandments to anybody else. This people is exclusive. This is exclusive. Okay? So let me back up what I said. You can see for yourselves that telling you and I that know that I have a relation. We found Amos, chapter number 3, but in the Psalms, he tells us that 7, verse number 19, if I'm not mistaken, what does he say? He reveals his words to Yaakov, his laws and rulings to Israel. Those laws and rulings are the Kukim and Mishpatim that he revealed to us through Moshe. Okay? Now, we need to understand about these laws, these Kukim and these Mishpatim. He says he has not done this for the other nations. They do not know his rulings. Hallelujah. They don't know. Okay. So the teaching that he said I was told to teach you was the laws and the rulings, which are the Kukim and Mishpatim. But the question is what did they hear? When Yah came on Mount Sinai, what did they hear?
I heard the 10 words.
They heard the 10 words. That's what they heard. Okay. There were more than 10. They're called the Decalogue, meaning the 10 statements of the covenant. That's what they heard. Okay. Let me show you the reason called 10 words. Does everybody know why it's called the 10 words? Huh? I'm going to show you why it's called 10. Okay. The reason why they're calling it 10 is not because there are just 10 words. Okay. It's 10 statements that the Most High has said. Okay. So it says here, I'm not going to get into that right quick. I just want to show you about the 10 words. All right. So they got like called 10 commandments here, which is a false statement. This is a false statement. This is false. That's not true. You say, well, it is a command, right? They're not called tzav. They're not, the Hebrew word for command is tzav. This is where the religion comes in. Okay, that's why they're calling it 10 commandments. They're literally called 10 words. The Dvareem. The reason why it's called 10, everyone, is because it's broken down into 10 sections. Okay. So as you can see in verse number 6, it says, Anoki Yahweh Eloheka, Asher Hotzithika, the Me'aretz Misraim from Beta Avadim. Right? He goes and says, I am Yahweh, your Elohim, who brought you out of the land of Misraim from the house of bondage. Okay. Then he says, never, lo, shall exist unto you any gods other before me. You can't put them in front of my face. We're going to talk more about that probably on Shabbat. Verse number 8, he goes on and say that you shall not make any image for yourself. And then all of a sudden, he gives you all this, right? And he tells you everything about what he's saying. When he gets to verse number 10, right, it ends what they would call a stuma right here. So the reason why it's 10 is because there's 10 divisions in this teaching. So that's the first one. Okay, so we're going to count them. So verses 1 through 10 is one stuma. Verse number 11 is one stuma. Again, you see it right here again. So this right here is the second one. This is stuma number 2. And what is a stuma? Okay, a stuma. A stuma says that I am going to take a pause. Okay, it's where you make a pause and you think about what you just read. Okay, in the Hebrew text, it's a space. Okay, so this pause is literally like a space, right? That you pause, and then it means that it's going to continue to teach. Now I'm just going to talk about something a little bit different about this topic, this theme that you're having. It's just different compartments. Okay, so this is the second one. And so he, from verse number 11, he gives you this next one about his name, right? And he mentions that. Verse number 12. So that's 2. Verse number 12, 13, 14, 15. There you go. So 12, 13, 14, 15 all go together. So everything he talks about from 12 to 15 is talking about one aspect of the theme. Okay. So here's the number 3. That's the third one. It means take a pause, think about what I just said, internalize it, and then move on. Discuss it. Number 6, then 16. So that's the third one. 16. Oh, there it is. Here it is. 16 is the fourth one. 17, fifth one. 18, sixth one. 19, seventh one. 20, eighth. 21, ninth. 22. Where's it at? Yeah, you see 21 right here. Got to be careful. That's one right here. And finally, at the end, you're going to see the last one, which is the 10th one right here. You see? So there's within the same verse, there's two of them. Okay. So it's letting you know when I'm talking about, you should not covet your neighbor's wife or the wife of your neighbor. Then he puts a stuma right there. So he's telling you that I want you to pause and I want you to think about what I just said. So what I did was I took my pause and I studied what this word meant versus what this word meant. Okay, because here I'm talking about your wife. Here I'm talking about your house, his field, his manservant, his maidservant, his ox, his donkey, or anything else that belongs to him. Here he talks about desire. This word covet means desire too, but in what way? There's two different ways, two different words. One is thakmod, meaning kamod, and the other one is thiyaweh, which means soawah, to desire. They both mean desire, but in what way? See? So you have to take your time and go through it so you can understand what he's saying. Now, that's how they come up with the 10, all right? So now let's look at going back here again. So he says that you need to observe these. When people hear this, they're going to say this, verse number 7, a great nation is there that Elohim has Elohim as close to them as Yahweh our Elohim is whenever we call on him. So what were they calling on him for? And how did they call on him? What were they calling for and how did they call on him? Did he answer everybody's prayer when they made a prayer? He just sends them a message. How did it work? Is he talking about individuals or is he talking about a nation?
He's talking about a nation.
He's talking about a nation. Thank you, Akoti. He's talking about a nation. Okay, so listen carefully because we're in this to win. All right. So what has happened is that we're thinking that as individuals, you and I can call on Yah at any time and he'll listen to us. It didn't work like that. It did not work like that. It only worked when the nation had to come before the Most High. They had a high priest who would go to Yah on their behalf and meet their needs. Like, for example, if they had to go to war as a nation. That's what it was. If they had instances where they have problems in their house, they would have to go to the priest or they would have to go to whatever officers were in charge and stuff like that. What I'm saying, everyone, is that everyone as an individual just didn't go to Yah anytime they felt like it. It didn't work like that. And I think that's what we're missing. I think we're really desperate, right? And we want a relationship with him so bad that we're making up our own way of understanding so we can feel like we're close to him and that he really cares about us. But he's saying that you're misunderstanding what's going on. I did not call just individuals. I called a nation of people. And it's not until the nations recognize, so all the peoples recognize this, that you guys are not going to be able to come to me and call on me until this happens. Because that's when I'm going to be close to you, is when I gather all of you back together. What great nation is there that has laws and rulings as just as this entire Torah, which includes the laws, the statutes, and the commandments, and the Moedims, and the Shabbats? All that is included. The Torah is just the instruction, how to proceed. Okay? He says, only be careful and watch yourselves, which is your souls, carefully, as long as you live, so that you won't forget, right? Shakak, you won't forget what you saw with your own eyes, so that these things won't vanish from your hearts. Okay, so I need you to guard your souls. Rather, you need to make them known to your children and your grandchildren. And on the day, or the day that you stood before Yahweh, your Elohim at Korev, when Yahweh said to me, gather the people. That's what he said, gather the people to me. Yah said this, not the individuals, gather the people, and I will make them, plural, hear my very words so that they will learn to hold me in awe as long as they live on the earth, so that they will teach their children. You, the nation, approached and stood at the foot of the mountain, and the mountain blazed with fire to the heart of heaven, with darkness and clouds and thick mist. Raphael, okay, meaning totally just, you can't see, okay? Then Yahweh spoke to you out of the fire. You heard sounds of words, but you saw no shape. There was only a voice. We're going to talk more about this voice on Shabbat, if Yah is willing, because it's too big to go into right now. So the idea is when you read your Torah portion, you can hear and understand that the Most High is talking about, I'm letting you know what my voice is. All right, I'm talking, right? And he says he proclaimed his covenant to you, which he ordered you to obey, which what? The 10 words, and he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. The reason why they're 2 stone tablets, right, is simply because the stone has to do with what Yah considers to be the writing material for you not to change what he said. He also gave it to stone because it represents your mind. Because we see this in Ezekiel, where he says, I'm going to give you a new mind. I'm going to get rid of that stony heart that you have, right? I'm going to give you a different type of mind. I'm going to soften your mind up. But even the stone itself, you know, the Most High deals with Israel and say, anytime you make an altar to me, you got to make it of stone. When you have the 12 tribes of Israel, they have stones with their name written on it, on the breastplate of the koshin, which is on the breastplate of the high priest. Stones are being used there. Okay. Anytime you make an altar to me out of stone, you're not going to apply any type of tool to it. You're not going to cut it. Okay. So the Most High is using stones. When you are out of line, I'm going to use the stone to stone you to death. Okay. So stones are used all the time. Okay. When they made the temple, they didn't cut any stones. They just brought the stones. Okay. They didn't cut them. There was not a tool that was heard in the temple. Okay. He says, listen, somebody's trying to get in. Praise Yah. Okay. So he says that he proclaimed, he proclaimed his covenant to you. Okay. He proclaimed his covenant to you. And the covenant is directly pointed to the 10 words. And he wrote them on 2 stone tablets. Okay. So they call it 10 commandments, which is an error. It's the 10 Dvareem, the 10 words. When the Most High spoke the covenant to Israel, the 10 words, he stopped. He only gave them 10 words. That's all he gave them. You know, I'm Yahweh brought you out of the land of Mizraim. You should not have another Elohim before me. You should not use my name in vain. You know, don't keep the Sabbath, those things. They only heard those things. They didn't hear anything else. Okay. So what did they not hear?
The laws and the rulings.
They didn't hear the laws and the rulings, everybody. They only heard the 10 words. Okay, so when someone says that, you know, how can you keep the covenant? You know, the covenant was broken. Yeah, we broke it, but guess what? You and I are bound to the 10 words. Okay, and let me continue so I can break it all down at the end and give you a summary. It says, at that time, Yahweh ordered me to teach you. At what time? After he gave the 10 words and he wrote them down on tablets. Moshe came down. He went up to the mountain. He came back down and said, hey, I'm going up. Stay right here. I'll put Aaron and them in charge until I come back. Because Yah told him, you come up so you could go and get the laws and the rulings. So that you would live by them in the land. So the laws and the rulings for the land. Okay, this is the second time he says that this is for the land. The laws and the rulings are for the land. Well, Akika, are you saying that we don't have to keep the covenant? No, I'm telling you that you and I have to listen and obey the 10 words of the covenant. That's what you and I, because that's what we heard. Those are the testimonies of Yah. The actual laws and rulings apply to the land. I was asked a question, well, what about Pesach? Well, the Pesach, you have to be able, they go with the land. They go with the land. You have to bring an offering on that day, which are found in the laws and the rulings of Yah. Well, how do you keep Pesach? The way that you guard Pesach, you don't have to la a soth. You can't la a soth. The Most High sent us in exile. We cannot keep the Pesach with the offering of the lamb at the temple. But what you can do is you can memorialize it and do what he said by remembering what I did for you as a people. You can remember what I did. I want you to remember what I did. Well, Akika, what about the Shabbat? Is not the Shabbat part of the 10 words? The Shabbat is the 10 words. Well, some people say, well, you had to have an offering and you had to bring an offering for the Shabbat. They had to bring offerings for the Shabbat. You're absolutely right. They had to for the laws and the rulings. But when was the Shabbat given? When did the children of Israel did the first time they kept the Shabbat? Tell me.
If I understand your question, it was done before they left. It was
Yeah.
done before
So let's go look. Go ahead, Sister Pam. What'd you
they
say?
left Mizraim.
No. They didn't know about it. Here's when they known about it. Exodus chapter number 16. I'm bringing this out because I want you to understand when he gave them the Shabbat. Okay, and then you're going to see if is there any offerings. So here it is. Chapter number 19 is when they got the marriage offer. Chapter number 20 is when they got the actual covenant. Chapter number 16 was way before that. Okay. Chapter number 16 said they traveled on from Elim, and the whole community of the people of Israel arrived at the Sin desert between Elim and Sinai. So they haven't even arrived at Sinai yet. It was on the 15th day of the second month. So it was 30 days after leaving Egypt. They left Egypt on the first month on the 15th day. Now we're on the 15th day of the second month after leaving Egypt. It's a 30-day period. There in the desert, the whole community of the people of Israel grumbled against Moshe and Aaron. The people of Israel said to them, we wish that Yahweh had used his own hand to kill us off in Egypt. There we used to sit around the pots with meat boiling, and we had as much food as we wanted. But you have taken us out into this desert to let this whole assembly starve to death. Yahweh said to Moshe, here, I will cause bread to rain down from heaven for you. The people are to go out and gather a day's ration every day. By this, I will test whether they will observe my Torah, which is my instructions, or not. On the sixth day, when they prepare what it will turn out to be as much as they gathered on the other days. Moshe and Aaron said to the people of Israel, this evening you will realize it's been Yahweh who brought you out of Mitzrayim. And in the morning you will see Yahweh's glory, for he has listened to your grumblings against Yahweh. What are we that you should grumble against us? Moshe added, what I have said will happen when Yahweh gives you meat this evening, meat to eat this evening, and your fill of bread tomorrow morning. Yahweh has listened to your complaints and your grumblings against him. What are we? Your grumblings are not against us, but against Yahweh. Moshe said to Aaron, say to the whole assembly of Israel, come close into the presence of Yahweh, for he has heard your grumblings. And as Aaron spoke to the whole community of the people of Israel, they looked toward the desert, and there before them the glory of Yahweh appeared in a cloud. And Yahweh said to Moshe, I have heard the grumblings of the people of Israel. Say to them, at dusk you will be eating meat, and in the morning you will have your fill of bread. Then you will realize that I am Yahweh, your Elohim. Oh, praise Yah, Akoti. Yes. And so this evening, quails came up and covered the camp, and while in the morning, there was a layer of dew all around the camp. And when the dew evaporated, there was on the surface of the desert a fine flaky substance, as fine as the frost on the ground. And when the people saw it, they asked each other, what is it, right? Manhu, what is it? Because they didn't know what it was. And Moshe answered them, is the bread which Yahweh has given you to eat. Here's what Yahweh has ordered. Each man is to gather according to his appetite. Each is to take an omer, 2 quarts per person for everyone in his tent. The people of Israel did this. Some gathered more, some less. But when they put it in an omer measure, whoever had gathered much had no access, and whoever gathered little had no shortage. Nevertheless, each person had gathered according to his appetite. Why? Because he's trying to figure out whether or not they're going to obey and observe the Torah, which is the instruction. So Moshe told them no one is to leave any of it until the morning. But they didn't pay attention to Moshe, which, of course, he got that message from Yah. And some kept the leftovers until the morning, and it bred worms and rotted, and it made Moshe angry at them. So why? Because they did not listen to the command. And so they gathered in the morning, morning after morning, each person according to his appetite. But as the sun grew hot, it melted. On the 6th day, they gathered twice as much as bread, 2 omers of the person per person, and all the community leaders came and reported to Moshe. He told them, this is what Yahweh has said. Tomorrow is a holy Shabbat for Yahweh. Bake what you need to bake, boil what you need to boil, and whatever is left over, set aside for in the morning. So you see that the Shabbat is in the morning. The Shabbat doesn't start on Friday evening, people. It starts Saturday morning. You prepare what you need to prepare on the 6th day. That's what he told them, right? And so they set it aside until what? The morning, because tomorrow, the next day, is a holy Shabbat. And they set aside till the morning as Moshe had ordered, and it didn't rot or have worms, right? And then he says, today, eat that, because today is a Shabbat, right? It's on the Shabbat now. Today, eat that, because today is a Shabbat. Today, you won't find it in the field. Here's what it is. Gather 6 days, but on the 7th day is a Shabbat, and on that day, there won't be any. However, on the 7th day, some of the people went out to gather and found none. Yahweh said to Moshe, how long will you refuse to observe my mitzvot and my teaching, my commandment and my instructions? Look, Yahweh has given you the Shabbat. This is why he is providing bread for 2 days on the 6th day. Each of you stay where you are. No one is to leave his place on the 7th day, which gets misconstrued because people are saying you can't leave your house on the Shabbat. You can't leave your dwelling. In context, he's saying don't leave your place of why. Why you can't leave your place? According to what we read. Why is he telling you can't go out? Why can't you go out on your tent? Why are you not supposed to leave your tent? Because the people were going out on the 7th day to go gather what he told them to gather on the previous day. There's nothing out there. So what I don't need you to do is leave your place of where your home is, where you stay, and leave it to go look for manna. So in context, he's saying there's not going to be any manna out there. Yah's not telling you can't leave your house on the Shabbat. You can leave and go outside of your dwelling on the Shabbat. The Shabbat is for you to acknowledge that Yah is the creator of all things. He doesn't want everybody to stay in the house on that day. He's telling you, listen, don't put your hand to any work on that day. Okay. So don't get it twisted. Okay. So I brought you here to let you know that the Shabbat, was there any mention of any offerings?
No.
No. So the Shabbat is really about following the instructions. Shabbat is on the 7th day, okay? And so the Most High is saying, I'm going to ask you to keep it. Can you keep the Shabbat? Because they're telling you that you can't. They're telling you that you can't do it because you don't have an offering. You see there that you can. The same chapter, okay? Chapter number 20, which is 4 chapters later, the Most High tells us something about the Shabbat. Verse number 8. remember the day, Shabbat. It is set apart for Elohim. You have 6 days to do your labor and do all your work. You have 6 days. But the 7th day is Shabbat for Yahweh. Your Elohim on it. You are not to do any kind of work. No, not you, your son, your daughter, your male or female slave, not your livestock, not the foreigner staying with you inside your gates of your property. For in 6 days Yahweh made the heaven and earth, the sea and everything in them. But on the 7th day he rested. This is why Yahweh has blessed the day, the Shabbat, and separated it for himself. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a question. This is the covenant. Okay. I want to see if we can keep it. Number one, do you have a problem with Yah saying that he's the one who brought the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt? Can you, since they said it's a commandment, do you agree with this or you deny this?
I agree.
You agree. Great. Is he giving you a commandment here, or because they said it's 10 commandments? No, Yah is introducing himself to the children of Israel. Remember, he said, I'm going to bring you out so you can meet Yah. He wants to meet with you. He wants to introduce himself to you. Number two, these are the words that he said. You are to have no other gods before me. That's a statement. You're to not have any other gods before me. Never. Can you do that? Or you can't because you don't have an offering.
No, we can do that.
You could do that. Can you do, or can you not make carved images or any kind of representation, anything in the heaven above or the earth beneath or the water below the shoreline? Is that hard? You could do that. You don't have to bow down and serve them. Could you obey your parents?
Yes.
Yes. Can you remember the Sabbath day?
Sure.
He said, remember. Said, well, while you're in exile, Rivka was on. Rivka, are you still here? Are you still on? She said something that was really interesting today that I found very fascinating. She said that while a person is in exile, if they're under the bondage of their captors, and they tell them, hey, you got to work on this day, what kind of ways could you keep and remember the Shabbat on the day? How could you commemorate it? How could you remember it? Well, she said you can get your gas the day before for work. You can prepare all your food for that morning and the next day and the evening. You can prepare your lunch. You can, on your break at work, you can think about, because if you're forced to work, you don't have a choice. You understand? But there's different ways that you can remember the Shabbat. Verse number 9. Let me see, going down. So we know that you could do that. Oh, she's coming back. Okay. What else? So you can honor your mother and your father. Can you not murder people?
Yes.
Do you need an offering for that? Because there's no offering for that. Do you need an offering for that? No. Do you need an offering for not committing adultery? Can you not commit adultery?
Yes, you cannot.
You could do all these things. That's my point. I'm going to deal with 19 probably, or the covenant neighbor, house and wife and all that a little bit later. So what I'm saying, everyone, is that we could do the things that the Most High has said. You could do these things. Okay, so don't act like we can't do it. So what am I saying that we can do? What I'm telling you is that you and I can go back and we can honor the covenant that Yah has made with us, which are the 10 words. You understand? So then he says, at that time, after he gave the 10 words, he said, he told me to teach you the laws, the kukim, and the ruling so that you will live by them in the land when you go take possession of it. Remember, I want you to do this because when you go into the land, I need to teach you how to behave properly. Therefore, watch out for yourselves, since you did not see a shape of any kind on the day that Yahweh spoke to you in Koreh from the fire, letting us know that what's going to happen is somebody's going to come along and try to convince you that there's another God and that, Yah has actually changed forms And now he's come in the image of his son, and he's an image of a man. He says, do not become corrupt. Don't ruin yourselves and make yourself an image having the shape of any figure, not a representation, which is called a tumuna, anything that resembles an animal on the earth, or anything that's a representation of any bird that flies in the air, a representation of anything that creeps along the ground, or a representation of fish in the water below the shoreline. Somebody tell me why. Why does he not want you to make any of these things to represent him?
Because they're unclean.
Yes, and they're a false representation of Yah. Remember, it's about Yah's reputation, it's about his character. So if we make something like a bird or an animal or a human being, we're saying that like, oh, okay, this is what Yah is like. When it says that Yah says, let's make man in our image, what he was saying, I'm going to make an image of them, which is that I see this suitable for them to be able to hold my spirit that I give to them. Something that I see as being fit and right to hold my spirit that I give to them. Yah's not a human being. Okay. So if we make any type of anything, we're really misrepresenting who Yah is, and we're misrepresenting the power of the Most High. Because everything that he mentions is very vulnerable and is weak, and it can die, and it can be destroyed. Okay. And it's been created. So this bothers us because we want Yah to be created like us. We want him to be a creature, and he's not. He says, for the same reason, do not look up at the sky, the sun, the moon, the stars, and everything in the sky, and be drawn away to worship and serve them. Yahweh Elohim has allotted these to all the peoples under the entire sky. Meaning, if you and I are open to worshiping anything other than what Yah has said, which is himself only, and listening to the voice, you and I are going to do one of these moves. We're going to worship these things. So let's start right there. Who do you know in a religion that who worships the sun? That has a sunburst behind every one of their figures, their human figures.
Christianity.
Christianity. Who do you know that worships the moon? What religion? Take a guess. They have a crescent moon and they have a star.
I know it's Islam.
It's Islam. It's the Muslims. Do you understand? Who do you know who will make a representation of a human being? A male or a female? People are worshiping human beings, everybody. Do you understand? They have images of animals that they worship, and they give credence to. They have insects and creeping things that you have in all different parts of the world. People actually worship cows in India. The Most High is saying you've corrupted yourselves and you've become like the other nations. And how, if they open you up to a human being, you're going to be open to these things as well. Those are all created things, and you're going to bow down to them, and you're going to be drawn away. You're going to worship them. Yahweh has allowed all these for the peoples, all the people under the entire sky, not for them to worship, but as a benefit for them to bring light. Okay. So it says, no, Yahweh has taken and brought you out of the smeltering furnace, out of Egypt, to be a people for inheritance for him, as you are today. I'm going to start right there. You and I are Yahweh's inheritance. We're the ones that he wants for himself. The Kukim and the Mishpatim were given to the children of Israel so they can learn how to behave when they go into their land of inheritance. Yah has chosen us out of all the peoples on the face of the earth to be his inheritance. I chose you out of all the peoples. I chose this animal because it's the one I want. I chose this color out of all the colors. I chose you. See? So I don't want you to do that. I'm the creator. So don't minimize me. And don't think that you can just come up to me and talk to me. It doesn't happen like that. And when I'm giving you my laws, I'm giving it for you to go back to your land. Now, what's the goal? The goal is what the Most High is doing with us right now, everyone, and we're going to talk more about it on Shabbat, is he's literally preparing us to go home, but also too, he's preparing us to hear his voice. He's preparing us to open our eyes. So you won't run back to the tent. You won't run from Yah. You know, we're going to be terrified. Don't get me wrong, but look, at first I was thinking, okay, I just want to go back to the land, right? I'm saying, okay, I'm building this relationship with Yah, and he's going to bring us back to the land. We're going to get our inheritance. Yeah, that's part of it. But before they went into the land, they had to be introduced to Yah. And Yah's telling us that I'm going to introduce myself to you again. I'm going to introduce myself to you. I got to prepare you for that introduction, because you won't go into the land until you and I have this introduction. That's what he's telling us. So yeah, it's prep. Yeah, it's prep. But it's not, well, we got to learn, you know, the Kukim so we can keep the Kukim here. We don't want to minimize his majesty about his decrees. You and I know that the Kukim right can't be kept here. Yah didn't send us here to keep a Kukim. He sent us here, like Moses said, for us to acknowledge where we went wrong and what our ancestors did to him. And then he says, you're going to observe and do, meaning you're going to mentally understand and accept what he said about the words that he spoke to us to tell us this what it is. You're going to be thinking, like, if you could keep it, if you can literally do what he's asking you to do, you would do it. If you could bring a basket of fruit to him that he provided for you, you won't have any problem doing so. So the deal is, I need to prepare you for you to be introduced to me. I'm giving you the heads up. Just like I did your ancestors. When Yah introduced himself, and I'll close with this, when Yah introduced himself to the children of Israel, everybody, he went and sent Moshe to the land of Egypt, and he gave them Yahweh's name. Yah said, tell them that I sent you, and here's my name. You and I have woken up to the truth what Yahweh's name is. And we only learned that when we read the Torah. You didn't get his name in the New Testament. You never will. You'll never find it. So the Most High is showing us that just like he talked to our ancestors when they were in Egypt, and he's like telling them, hey, I'm going to come and get you. He's going to do the very same thing for us. But he's telling you, just like I took them out and I brought them into the wilderness, I'm bringing you out to the wilderness so I can introduce myself to you. But this time, you're going to have to endure when you hear me speak, and you can't run into your tent. There won't be nowhere for you to go. You see? And they said that. They were so terrified that they did another option to get out of hearing Yah's voice. If you notice, the Most High stopped after the 10 words. They were supposed to get the Mishpatim and the Kukim. Everything that Moshe received, we were supposed to get it. But we didn't get it because we weren't ready to get it. So right now, Yah is saying, I want to find out who's going to be willing to stand before me. Because he asked that question, which we're going to go on Shabbat. Which one of you are going to stand in front of me and give your mind to me so you can do what I'm asking you to do? Who understands the plan? That's what he's saying. Who understands my plan for my people? That's what he's doing. So it's not just our first destination is not going to the land. Our destination is going to the desert. We're going into the wilderness. And you and I are going to have to be able to endure when Yah starts talking. So that's all we're doing. You're getting prepared for that. I'll say Lila Tov to you tonight. Any questions or contributions before I let you go?